It happened on a Tuesday night in September. Adaeze heard him fall before she saw him. She called his name twice. He did not answer the second time. She called for an ambulance with a shaking hand while her other hand pressed against his chest. The ambulance came in 11 minutes. It felt like an hour. Paramedics worked on him the whole way. Compressions, oxygen, a voice on a radio calling ahead to the hospital, giving vitals that were getting worse, not better. They wheeled him in at a run. Doctors worked on him for 23 minutes, then it stopped. The doctor called it cardiac arrest. Time of death, 11:52 p.m. Adaeze reached the hospital 4 minutes after he was already gone. His mother arrived 20 minutes later. Nobody had to tell her. She read it on the walls. The doctor wrote cardiac arrest on the certificate. That part was true. What they did not know, what nobody in that hospital corridor knew, is that Nelson Okafor's heart did not fail on its own. Something had been failing it for months, slowly, on purpose, just not in the way you are imagining. To understand what really happened to him, we have to go back, not weeks, but months. Her name was Ijeoma, 31, a nurse. Baltimore had been her home for 7 years, and in all that time she had built something careful. A license, a paid-off car, a savings account she checked every Friday, a small church family in Owings Mill. She was good at her work, careful, exact. She had built her whole life on that idea that discipline protects you. She was also most nights alone, not the kind of alone that looks sad from the outside. She had a job, she had a church, a car she had paid off with her own money, just the kind of alone that follows a woman home and sits at her kitchen table with her. There is a particular loneliness that comes with being far from home. It is not the loneliness of having nobody. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people who do not know your mother's maiden name, who have never heard of Nnewi, who could not find it on a map with both hands and a torchlight. You can fill that space with work and church and Western Union receipts. The space still follows you to bed. Then, in March, a friend request, a man named Nelson Okafor from Oka, close enough to her own people in Nnewi that it felt like family before it was anything else. He calls every night, voice notes that remember details she didn't expect a stranger to remember, gifts that arrived without warning. By June, she was in love, or close enough that the difference stopped mattering. He asked about her patients. He remembered their names. For a woman who has spent years being competent and self-sufficient and alone, that kind of attention, steady, repeated, deliberate, was the sweetest thing in the world. In October, he proposed on a video call. The screen froze for 4 seconds at the exact moment he asked. When it came back, she was already crying yes. She told her mother, she told her church. She started looking at gowns. 3 weeks of happiness, then silence. 2 days of it, then 5. When he finally called, it wasn't a video call. That alone told her something. I think it's best for we to go our separate ways, he said. And the sentence was so smooth, she knew he had rehearsed it. He gave no reason, just the word journey. Twice, like it explained anything. She did what women do, cried until the crying turned into a sound she couldn't recognize. Delete his number, saved it, deleted it again, kept walking, kept smiling at patients, kept the whole thing folded up small enough to carry through a 12-hour shift. She found out in December, in a cousin's post, Nelson's arms around the woman at a family gathering in Lagos. The woman was Adaeze, her own cousin, the girl she had shared a mattress with every August in Nnewi. She called him. He answered on the first ring as if he had been waiting. He confirmed it. Serious, Adaeze didn't know about you, he said, and said it like it was a kindness. That was the moment something in her stopped being about heartbreak and started being about arithmetic. What was owed, what she intended to collect. By February, she had stopped going to church. What replaced the prayer wasn't rage, exactly. Rage burns hot and empties itself out. This was colder than that. This was a woman doing arithmetic on a debt she believed she was owed, and deciding quietly that she intended to collect it in person. By March, she had a plan that had nothing to do with prayer. She had heard of a man in Ajebule, the kind who could do what medicine can't and prayer won't. She told him what she wanted, not Nelson's death. She was clear about that, at least at the start. She wanted him humbled, broken the way she had been broken, made to feel in his own body what it cost to walk away from a woman and call it a journey. He gave her beads. Red ones, small, plain, strung on a black thread. He told her to wear them against her skin, always, without exception, whenever she was near the man she meant them for. They will not touch you, he said, but whenever your skin touches his, they will find their ways into him, and they will not let him rest until he has paid for what he took. She heard he will suffer. She did not ask what not letting him rest meant. In the end, if it went on long enough, she had always decided what kind of story she was living in, and in that story, this was justice. She applied for leave at the hospital, packed one suitcase, boarded a flight to Lagos with the bead already at her throat. She did not take them off again for 5 months. Lagos does not welcome anybody, it only endures you. She landed knowing exactly what she was meant to do. And it was not what the man in Ajebule would have called subtle. She checked into a hotel in Surulere and did not tell a single relative in Lagos she had landed. She had a plan, and the plan she needed to appear and not to be expected. She spent her first 2 days simply moving through the city again. The markets, the traffic, the church bells she used to know by their exact pitch. Lagos had not waited for her, but it had not entirely forgotten her either. Both things were useful. She ate at a buka near the hotel, the kind of place that does not ask who you are or why you have come. She listened to the pepper soup argument at the next table and the radio behind the counter, and for 1 hour she let herself to be nobody in particular, not a jilted fiancé, not a woman carrying beads under her blouse, just a customer waiting for her change. She went to a family function first, a cousin's naming ceremony, because Adeze's family was her family too. And family functions are where everybody ends up in the same room eventually, whether they plan it or not. She hugged aunties. She admired a baby that was not hers to admire. She kept her eyes moving the whole time, the way a person moves through a room when they are looking for exactly one face and pretending they are not. She watched Nelson see her across the room. She watched the exact second his face stopped being surprised and started being afraid of himself, not of her. Adeze was there, 3 meters away, laughing with a baby on her hips. She never saw it happen. She never got the chance to. Ijeoma did not raise her voice. She simply told him quietly that she needed to speak to him, just once, to close the door properly, she said. He believed her because believing her was easier than the alternative. He should have said no. Later, he would think about that moment more than almost any other. The half second where saying no was still simple, before it became the kind of thing a man tells himself he will manage and then can't. Whatever was said behind that door did not stay behind it. What began as just once did not stay that way either. Over the weeks that followed, Nelson found reasons to be in Ijeoma's part of the city. She found reasons to still be in Lagos at all. A sick relative who didn't exist. A passport renewal that took much longer than passport renewal take. Her mother asked more than once when she was coming home. Ijeoma always had a reason ready. She was surprised some nights at how easily the lies arrived, as if some part of her had always known this trip would need a longer story than the one she had told at the airport. Nelson kept a photograph of his family on the sitting room wall the entire time. He never took it down. Whatever he told himself about what he was doing, he told himself in front of that photograph, and somehow that made it worse, not better. She never took the beads off, not to sleep, not to bathe. Not once in 5 months did they leave her skin. Nelson started missing things at work, small things at first. A meeting moved and forgotten, a phone left on silent for a whole afternoon. The kind of small carelessness that looks from the outside exactly like a man falling in love with someone he shouldn't be falling in love with. Nobody around him had any reason yet to imagine it was something closer to a slow poisoning. The first symptom was small, a tightness in his chest. He blamed on stress. He mentioned it to no one. Adeze noticed before he admitted anything. He was tired in a way sleep didn't fix, short-tempered in a way that wasn't like him. She asked if he was alright. He said he was fine, the way men say fine when they mean the opposite. He went to a doctor once, quietly, without telling Adeze. Blood pressure slightly high, nothing conclusive. The doctor told him to rest more, worry less. Nelson laughed at that because resting was the one thing he could no longer do. He went back a second time in July, alone again. This time the doctor asked about stress at home, about sleep, about anything unusual in his life lately. Nelson said no to all three questions. All three were lies, and his body underneath the lies kept score more honestly than he did. They met when they could. Lagos is a city built for hiding things, if you know which corner to use. And Nelson, to his shame, learned them quickly. Ijeoma watched him get smaller across those months, not in body, not yet, but in the way a man gets smaller when something is quietly taking the floor out from under him. Some nights she told herself, good, this is what a lesson looks like. Other nights, the ones she didn't examine too closely, she felt the first cold edge of something that was not satisfaction at all. She thought more than once about taking them off. She never did. Some part of her, the part still keeping the arithmetic, was not finished collecting. By July, Adeze had started keeping her own private ledger. The nights he came home late, the excuses that didn't quite match each other, the new habit of stepping outside to take calls that used to come through openly at the dinner table in front of her. She found a receipt once from a hotel in Surulere folded small. She did not confront him immediately. She held it the way you hold a pain you are not yet ready to know the full weight of. By August, Adeze had started asking harder questions: where he went in the evenings, why his phone stayed face down on every surface. He had no good answers, only the bad temper of a man who knows he is caught and has decided to be angry about it instead of honest. Guilt curdled fast in a man who won't name it. It turns into something that looks like anger, but it's really just shame wearing a harder face. Dinner became a performance in that house. Adeze asking ordinary questions and receiving clipped answers. Nelson eating without tasting anything. The twins banging spoons against their plates in the only honest noise at the table. Neither adult said what they were actually thinking. That had become the marriage's new unspoken rule. She lay awake some nights running through a list of ordinary explanations. Stress, overwork, a difficult client, and none of them quite fit the shape of the man beside her. A wife knows the difference between a husband who is tired and a husband who is somewhere else entirely, even when his body is right there in the bed. In the last week of August, he threw her out, her and the children. He gave her no real reason, none he was willing to say out loud. She asked him one more time, "What have I done?" He couldn't answer that question, because the honest answer had nothing to do with her, and he did not have the courage that morning to say so. She packed what she could carry in 20 minutes, clothes for the children, a few of her own things, the small Bible her own mother had given her at her wedding. She did not argue. Women who have grown up watching other women argue with men who have already decided know that arguing only buys you a worse version of the same ending. His mother arrived at the gate as Adeze was leaving and begged her son, right there in the road, to reconsider. He would not. Nobody in that compound understood that morning that the man refusing to reconsider was no longer entirely the man they thought they knew. If you watched the last film, you already know what came after that night. You watched her survive it. The school, the years alone, the mother-in-law, who eventually begged her to come back. What you didn't know is why it happened at all. Ijeoma heard about it 2 days later from a cousin's phone call. Adeze had been thrown out with the twins. For one ugly moment, some old wounded part of her felt something close to satisfaction. The marriage she had never gotten had now finally cracked. Then, the moment passed. What was left underneath it was worse, because she had not planned this. She had planned that Nelson would suffer. She had never once in any version of the plan pictured her cousin walking out of the gate with 2 children and nowhere to go. She went back over it in her mind, the way you go back over an accident looking for the moment you could have braked in time. There's no one clean moment. It had happened the way water gets into a boat, a little at first, unnoticed, until suddenly the whole floor is wet and nobody can say precisely when it started. She called Nelson. His voice, when it came, sounded thinner than it had 5 months earlier. He told her he wasn't sleeping, that his chest hurt most nights, that he didn't know what was wrong with him and the doctor kept finding nothing. He said it like a confession, like he suspected, without being able to say that something about the two of them together was not right. For the first time, she was frightened, not for herself, but for him. She called the man in Ajegunle. She asked him directly, for the first time, could this kill him? He was quiet for a moment, then he said, I told you they would not let him rest. Rest is what a body needs to keep living. You did not ask me what happens to a man who is never allowed to rest. Then, take it back, she said. Whatever you did, undo it. He shook his head slowly, the way a doctor shakes his head at a question that has no comforting answer. A debt collected cannot be uncollected, madam. I gave you what you asked from me. You are the one who did not ask enough questions. She wanted to scream at him that she hadn't known, that nobody had told her plainly enough, that 5 months was not what she had signed up for. But some cold, honest part of her recognized that she had never asked the follow-up questions either. Not once, not in March, not in any of the calls after. She had wanted her ignorance. It had been easier to carry than the truth. She had heard it suffer. She had never let herself hear, and it will not stop. She took the bead off that night for the first time in 5 months. It made no difference. The man in Ajegunle told her that too, in the part of the sentence she had not wanted to hear. Once it starts, it finishes on its own schedule. She spent 2 sleepless nights searching for anyone who could reverse it. A deliverance pastor in Yaba who prayed over the phone and charged for the privilege. A second Dibia in Ekpe who told her plainly that he did not undo another man's work, only his own. Every door she tried led back to the same locked room. She tried to warn him without telling him the truth. What was would even carry it? She told him instead to see a proper heart doctor, a specialist, urgent. He said he would. Men who have spent months being ashamed of themselves are not always in a hurry to go and be told the truth by a stranger in a white coat. He did not go in time. You have already seen the spots. The ambulance, the corridor, the flat line, the mother who read it on the walls before anyone said a word. Ijeoma got the call while she was still in Lagos, in a different hotel room by then, waiting for news she had told herself would be good news, that he would recover, that the bead would finish teaching him and letting him go. The bead let him go, just not in the direction she had let herself believe. She had wanted him humbled. She had gotten him dead. And somewhere across the city, a woman who had never done anything to her, who had never even known her name, was now a widow with 2 children and a funeral to plan for a man whose mother would have to beg her to come and bury him. She wanted to go to the funeral. She stood outside the compound where the wake was held, across the road, the way she once stood outside a different gate months earlier. She did not cross the road this time either. She watched Adeze from a distance, thinner, dressed in white, held upright by aunties on either side of her. A widow at 26 with 2 children who would grow up asking questions nobody would fully answer. His mother's cry carried across the road. Ijeoma had heard that same cry once already in a hospital corridor months earlier, and hearing it again, distilled now into rituals, was somewhere worse. She stood there long enough to watch the whole choreography of it. The canopies going up, the caterers arriving, the pastor's car pulling in, the small mountain of condolence envelopes building on a side table. A life folded down into a single afternoon's arrangement, and she had folded it. She wanted to cross that road and fall at her cousin's feet and say all of it. The bead, the affair, the plan, the mistake, all of it. She did not cross the road. She has never been able to explain even to herself whether that was mercy or cowardice. What happened after that happened the way these things happen, in peace. Her leave of absence expired. She never went back to claim it. Her apartment in Fells Point went to eviction. Her nursing license lapsed on a renewal date she had stopped remembering existed. Her savings account she used to check every Friday morning like a small prayer thinned down to nothing, spent on a life she had no longer lived anywhere in particular. Her mother stopped answering, not out of anger exactly. The family had pieced together enough of their affairs, if not the beads, to understand that Ijeoma's hands were somewhere in the wreck of Nelson's death, even if nobody could say precisely how. She stayed in Lagos because Baltimore no longer had anything in it that was hers. She stayed in the hotel because leaving it felt like admitting that things was finished, and some tried stubborn part of her wanted to believe that there was a version of this where she got to fix. She thought about wearing them again, not for anyone this time, just to feel something on her skin that had once made her feel powerful. She did not put them on. She watched the streets below for hours some nights. Nobody down there knew what had happened in this room, or in the marital home across the city, or in the hospital corridor before that. Life kept moving underneath all of it, the way it always does, the way it always already moving underneath her too, without her noticing exactly when it had started to slow down. She had stopped recognizing herself somewhere in those last weeks, not dramatically, just a slow drift. The same slow drift she had once watched happen to Nelson from the outside, without understanding that she was inside a version of it too. She had picked up occasional shifts at a private clinic in Ikeja under her middle name, mostly to have somewhere to be that was not the hotel. She called in sick more than she showed up. In the end, the nurse in her, the careful, disciplined woman who had built 7 years in Baltimore, was still in there somewhere, but she had stopped being able to reach her reliably. She wrote her mother twice, real letters, on a paper, the way her mother had taught her to write before either of them owned a phone. She never sent either. She told herself she was waiting for the right word. The truth was, there was no right words for what she needed to say, and some part of her had already accepted that. She went into a church once, not her own denomination, not anywhere she was known. She sat at the back through an entire weekday service and did not sing a single hymn. She told herself afterwards that she had gone to pray. She was honest enough with herself by then to know that wasn't quite true. She had gone because it was the only room in Lagos where nobody expected her to explain herself. She thought about the man in Ajegunle's last words to her, the ones she had not asked for. "You did not ask me what happens to a man who is never allowed to rest." She had not asked the other questions either, the one that matters now. What happens to the woman who carried the thing that did it? In her final week, she filled a page of a notebook with a kind of confession nobody would ever read while she was alive. Not an excuse, just an account, the way a nurse writes an account, plainly, of what was done and when. They found her 3 weeks after the funeral. The housekeeper knocked, then knocked again, then called the manager. She was 31 years old. The death certificate said cardiac arrest. Nobody in that hotel thought to ask why a 31-year-old woman's heart has simply stopped. Nobody connected it to a man buried 3 weeks earlier under the same 2 words. 2 hearts, 2 months apart, 2 death certificates that used the same 2 words and told 2 families 2 completely unconnected stories. You already watched her do it. The school, the twins growing up despite everything, a life she made out of what was left after her husband was buried, and a cousin she never knew had touched every part of what took him from her. She never knew for years why Nelson changed in those last months. She assumed the way most people assume that a marriage simply breaks, the way marriage sometimes breaks quietly, for reasons nobody named out loud. The full truth reached her only years after, when family elders, the same ones who had always suspected there was a woman before her, a claim on Nelson that predated the marriage, finally pieced it together. A hotel record here and a cousin's memory there. A string of red beads found among Ijeoma things and never explained until someone finally explained it. Somebody had kept the notebook. It reached Adaeze at last, the way the most important thing in a family often do. It was passed down hand to hand, softened by everyone who couldn't bear to be the one who delivered it whole. When they told her about the affairs, the bead, the plan that was only ever supposed to be a lesson, she sat with it for a long time before she said anything. She thought about the mattress that they had shared every August in Nnewi, the whispered plans about the men they would marry, the school fees her own family had helped pay when Adeze's father was sick. None of that had been a lie. That was the hardest part to hold, that Ijeoma had loved her genuinely, right up until the moment she stopped being able to separate her cousin from the man who broke her. Then she said she was my sister too. She did not forgive it that same day. Forgiveness like that does not arrive on schedule. But she kept the notebook. She did not speak Ijeoma's name with hatred to her children when years later they asked about the cousin nobody in the family liked to mention. Let me tell you what I know. Ijeoma Obi did not set out to kill anyone. She was out to make a man feel one fraction of what he had made her feel. She was told plainly that the thing she carried could not let him rest, and she chose the way people choose when the truth is inconvenient, to hear the softer half of that sentence and leave the rest unexamined. The bead did what it did. It did not ask what she meant by it. It only did what it was made to do, on its own schedule, long after she had stopped being able to stop it. 2 people are dead because a heartbroken woman wanted a lesson taught, and the thing she used to teach it did not know the difference between a lesson and an ending. There is no ledger anywhere that balances what happened here. Nelson broke something in a woman who trusted him with a promise. That woman broke something in him that no doctor could name, and that person who paid the largest, longest bill for both of their choices never raised her hand against either of them. She only happened to be standing in the house where the debt came due. This is the part of the story people are least uncomfortable with. Not that a woman was wronged, not even that she sought a remedy for it. It is that the remedy she chose could not tell the difference between the man who deserved to answer for something and the family that had done nothing at all. That is what the bead was in the end. Not a punishment aimed with precision, a debt collector with no interest in who else lived in the house. And the room where the decisive thing happened, the hotel corridor, the closed door, the months nobody outside of the 2 people ever saw, that room stayed closed with the entire time. We stood outside it. We are still standing outside it. We told you only what the outcome allowed us to know. What Adeze built afterwards, we have already seen it. What made it necessary, she only learned years too late to change any of it, and still she forgave.